Hello! Today we're going to talk about Uber charges. Basically what we're going to cover is what an Uber charge is, what crit heals are, how to count Uber advantages, how to hold, and how to play off Uber and number advantages. So let's just get down to business. Assuming you're fairly familiar with the game, you know that there's 4 different types of medigun, namely the default Uber charge, the Kritzkrieg, the quick fix, and the vaccinator. By far the 2 most popular ones that see the most gameplay time are the Uber charge and the Kritzkrieg. Now let's quickly just talk about crit heals. Crit heals are the mechanic for medic that allows them to heal a player at 300% rate when they don't take damage for a certain number of time. So what it really means is that if you, as a player, do not take damage for 10 seconds, this includes self-damage and fall damage, then a medic healing you will heal you at a much higher rate. That means at 10 seconds of not taking damage, you get overhealed at 200% speed, and after 15 seconds of not taking damage, you get overhealed at 300% speed. Now this isn't a video demonstrating what each type of medigun does. There are so many videos on this topic already, so I'm assuming you're fairly familiar with the absolute basics of medic. Now let's talk about what's not really discussed in other videos, which is the actual application of Uber charges, how to count Ubers, and how to think ahead. Now the main flow of Team Fortress 2 is defined around 2 very important concepts. The first one being number advantage, which we're going to talk about later, and the second one being Uber advantage. What this means is that Ubers are used to break stalemates and give flow to the game. In competitive TF2, who pushes when is defined by which medic has an Uber advantage. Now figuring out what an Uber advantage is and how to calculate it is fairly simple. For all competitive modes and for pubs where there is 1 medic on each team, Uber advantage is really simply defined as who has the higher percentage of their Uber charge built and who will inevitably get to 100% first. That means that if the blue medic has a 20% Uber charge and the red medic has a 60% Uber charge, the red medic has a 40% advantage. It's really a simple concept. The actual Uber counting part is pretty straightforward. A medic takes 40 seconds at minimum to build an Uber from nothing, up to a maximum of 80 seconds. Uber builds slower when you continuously overheal a certain target. So when the person you're healing is over 142.5% health, I know it's pretty specific, but you know, that's what it is, and consider that the maximum overheal is 150%, then you build slower, which leads to the 80-second Uber build time. With all this info in consideration, on average, an Uber takes maybe 50 to 60 seconds to build. However, as you go up in divisions and skill levels, you'll find that better medics minimize the amount of downtime they have when building Ubers, and often have them ready close to the 40-second mark. Now keeping track of the other team's Uber is fairly simple. All it takes is for you to press tab and check roughly when they spawn, then subtract 40 seconds from the round timer. That's when the enemy team will have Uber at best. Now some really simple things to make this easier is to understand that, for example, if their medic dies when you're up, you'll have a sizable Uber advantage on them come the next push. Or if both medics die at roughly the same time, you can expect them to have Uber close to the same time as you. It's really simple. All you have to do is think about it logically. If your medic dies, then 10 seconds later, their medic dies, your medic will obviously have a 25% advantage or so. If he dies 20 seconds later, your medic will have a 50% advantage or so, etc. Now I know this requires a lot of thinking at first, but through the years, it's really come natural to me. I've been able to steadily keep track of enemy Ubers while playing any class. Usually the responsibility to count Ubers is on your medic, but anyone can do it if they're just able to do it. Now, assuming the other team is playing at full capacity, which is often the case, a push led by an Uber charge will most often happen when the medic reaches 100%. The other team is relying off you not being aware of their Uber charge to catch you off guard, kill you before you have full Uber, and keep their advantage going. Now this ties into my next point, which is how to hold depending on your advantage. If you have 70% Uber, you're expecting to push in the next 20 or so seconds, which means it's advantageous for you to hold close to a choke or the area you're thinking of Ubering to. The less time you waste, the bigger advantage you maintain in the long run. Now in contrast, if you know their team has a 50% Uber advantage on you, it'd be really stupid to hold close to the area that you think they're going to be pushing through, simply because they'll be able to walk through and kill your entire team relatively quickly. In this type of situation, it's better to sit a bit more far back, force their Uber early, and then go back in with your Uber. Now let's talk about number advantage and how it comes to tie in with Ubers. As I stated earlier, normally you want to push when 1 or more conditions are met. Now, number advantage is really simply defined as by having more players alive than the enemy team. You can just press tab and look who's alive and who's dead. Now for the conditions. If you have Uber charge and they don't, you want to push. If they have Uber and you don't, you want to back out. If you have number advantage, you want to push. If you have number disadvantage, you want to back out. It's fairly simple to comprehend, but it can be slightly messy when combined together. Now for example, if you have Uber advantage but not number advantage, sometimes it's worth it just to wait for your players to come back, but you have to use your own judgment here. Pushing 8v9 is often worth it, but pushing 2v9 is not. Now, if you don't have Uber advantage, but you have a large number advantage instead, you may be able to overwhelm them if the situation is right. For example, they have Uber, but they're only 2 up, and you have 9 players. You'll be able to normally force their medic and just win the push altogether, just because you have more players alive. Reacting properly to those last 2 situations is often just a case of playing more and learning from your mistakes. Learning all the mumbo jumbo about when to push, number advantages, etc. just comes down to playing more at a high level. Now, I believe we covered pretty much what I intended to cover with this video. We covered Uber advantages, how to count Ubers, and as always, I really appreciate the feedback, and thank you again for watching. I do want to mention that I do stream on weekends, so if you want to feel free to follow my channel, please do so. The link is in the description, and thanks for watching, guys.